Charles Owen. I'm retired military, now working as an employee, civilian employee for Fort Huachuca. And I was given the honor and privilege today of introducing candidate Peyton. He didn't pay me to do this. I've known him for quite some while, and because of that, I want to share with you how I met him, what I've observed as this remarkable young man. You're still a young man, despite celebrating your 39th birthday last week. So congratulations on that, John. You still got the youthful vigor and the drive,
yes,
and the vision. Absolutely. And you haven't hit the big 4-0 yet, and I don't think it will slow you down. But long story short, I was an active duty first sergeant here on Fort Huachuca, training initial entry trainees. Soldiers who had raised their right hand and sworn a made a contractual obligation and sworn an oath to protect and defend. It was a great assignment. Had young Americans that their parents had entrusted to us. Their final stage, if you will, from citizen, I should say, to soldier. We have a very, very good mutual friend, Scott Kirkley, retired senior warrant officer, now working, fighting really the war on drugs in Central and South America for us. And I mentioned Scott because he told me about this just incredible young man he knew, a graduate student, late 20s at the time, who had lived abroad. He wanted me to meet him and talk to him about my experiences as an initial entry trainee first sergeant, my Army experiences, to see if it would be for him. I'm so sorry. And so we met in December of '98 as I was preparing to leave California, sat and listened to his story. Like I said, remarkable young man. And Jonathan, I mean this, you're truly one of the most outstanding individuals I've met. Worked your hind off, being very polite here for you young Americans and young ladies that are in the audience with us. Went overseas, when most Americans don't even speak more than one language. If I remember, you lived in Germany, you traveled through Russia, you speak those languages, probably some others. And he was looking at the time to enlist in the U.S. Army Reserve. I said, well, I don't know, you're a smart young man, you've got a lot going for you. Not that I think the military is only for those who don't have other opportunities in their lives. But I truly thought at the time that the mind games, some of the juvenile things they would put you through, might be too much fun to bear. He proved me wrong. He really did. He enlisted, went to basic training. I was coming back from California, yet another trip in September of '99, if I remember. And I saw a young man who said, First Sergeant out, modified position of parade rest at the post gas station. I couldn't even get my soldiers to do that. And I'm looking at my friend Jonathan, my new friend Jonathan, distinguished honor graduate of basic training, knew some of the soldiers I was training at the time. He was part of the local MI unit right here on Fort Huachuca, the 5th of the 104. That was remarkable. So we had a great working relationship with him, even though, again, I was part of the active duty. Jonathan, and I use this term already, I know, but gave me the honor and the privilege of pinning non-commissioned officer stripes on him when he made Sergeant E5. I think you became, for your echelon, your reserve unit, the soldier of the millennium. Since it was the end of last century when you did that, I know. He's like, wow, I would never have asked you to introduce me if I knew you were going to be so grandiose. But really, that made an impression on me. Here we have a young man, graduate student, lived overseas, taking advantage of every opportunity that the U.S. Army Reserve and the Army has given him, and still excelling at that. He then became a no-grade commissioned officer. I lost touch with him for a few years, but of course kept my finger on the pulse of his career through our friend Scott, through the news. You know his political career. I won't even go into that. You wouldn't be here today, I think, if you hadn't read up on Jonathan. But state representative, state senator, stuck around long enough to see something through to fruition that you were a primary initiator of. And now, I'm proud to introduce to you my friend, a role model to my family, someone I admire greatly, and I think our next congressperson, Jonathan Peyton. Thank you.
I have no idea. I learned from Chaz Owen pretty much what I was in for in basic training by watching him with all the recruits, all the initial entry soldiers over at Fort Huachuca, and I thought, what am I getting myself into? But he got me to do it, and I think it was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Since that time, I've also served in Iraq and served in the legislature and served in the Senate. A lot of people ask me when I'm down in Cochise County, they say, what can you tell us about Congress's attitude towards the border issues? And I've talked to a lot of you already. and I know a lot of you have been already asking me about immigration issues and border issues, et cetera. So I want to start out with that a little bit, and then talk a little bit about why I'm running for office, and then close with your questions. And we also have a number of, well, we have at least one special guest. The Democratic Party decided to show up today to film the proceedings, so say hello. They want to use that for something later, I'm sure. But we want to have some straight talk today. I got a call not long ago, about a year ago, from Congressman Jeff Flake, who is a congressman in the East Valley up in Maricopa County. He called me up and he said that, he said, well, it was an evening. He said, I want to know if you'd be willing to testify in front of Congress on border issues. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do that. And he said, well, the only catch is you need to fly tomorrow morning. And I said, okay, when would I be testifying? He said, well, you'd be testifying the following morning. And I said, do you have like the whole thing kind of lined up, what you want me to talk about? And he said, not really, not yet. We're not sure what exactly the topic's going to be. And I said, well, when will I prepare, this whole conversation, or this whole testimony? He said, well, you can do that on the plane. So I flew all the way to Washington, D.C., and I sat next to this woman who, every time the flight attendant went by, she got one of those little airline bottles of alcohol. And I think my speech got better with each one of those, I'm not sure. And I finally arrived, and we got to the committee, and the name of the committee was a Government Reform Committee. And the whole purpose behind the committee, the title will tell you everything. And this was put on by the Democratic Party. And it was called Guns, Drugs, and Violence Are U.S. Inputs the Cause? Let me translate that for you. What that means is, how is it our fault as Americans that they're having a gun, drug, and violence problem in Mexico? The way they worked it is, the Democrats had 3 people testifying, and I was the 4th that was presented by the Republicans. And the way they do it is, they don't tell the minority, in this case the Republicans, really what the topic's going to be until the last minute. So they have to scramble to find someone, and I was that unwitting victim, I guess, to go to that. So I went to the testimony and I talked to them. And what I told them about was, this is a very different experience than people down here that actually live on the border, but they're up in Maricopa County. It was very relevant. I said that on Christmas Day of that year, a man was seen running away from a home in downtown Phoenix. He was naked. He had been beaten. He took DPS back to the home. They went there and they found out that it was a drop house. And in that drop house, they found 2 rooms. One room was filled with people just like him, about 40 people packed in the room about the size of a children's bedroom, next to another room in which they used as a torture room to get more money out of the people that they had in the first room. And when I was talking about this, I said, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because your topic that you have here today is about guns, drugs, and violence. The very people that are smuggling people into this country are the same people that are smuggling guns and everything else into Mexico. And if you want to fix the problem on the border, you have to fix the immigration problem, and you have to fix the problem of smuggling in the United States in the first place. Now let's look at the math of what happens in one of those drop houses. Those are 40 people, each worth about $2,000, times 3 loads per week. This was on Christmas Day, so that's 52 weeks a year. And they estimate there's about 1,000 of those drop houses in Maricopa County at any given moment. That is a phenomenal amount of money that we're talking about. Just an unbelievable amount of money that is flowing through this illegal trade. And we find, I was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, we find that when we investigate more and more, we find that the cartel problems that we see along the border are filtering all across the state. It's not just here in the border region, it's happening up all over the state. There are people that are now using SWAT team uniforms to do home invasions in Maricopa County to pretend that they're police officers. You know when the last time I saw that, people doing that, was in Iraq. The insurgency would dress up like they were the Iraqi police in order to fool people into letting them into their homes. Now they have to wonder if the people that they're going to be seeing are going to be